I am a human being, and I want to know the answers to some of the big existential questions in life. And the way to do it nowadays is to ask artificial intelligence to provide the answers. And this time I want to check out with AI what they have to say about the meaning of life, whether or not life has a meaning, and in that case what it could be. So let's ask the two artificial intelligence models, Google's Gemini and Microsoft's Copilot. Does life have a meaning?
The question of whether life has a meaning is one that has intrigued humans for centuries. Different perspectives offer various answers. Philosophical and religious views. Many philosophical and religious traditions propose that life has an inherent meaning or purpose. For example, some religious beliefs suggest that life's purpose is to fulfill a divine plan or to achieve spiritual enlightenment. Scientific perspective. From a scientific standpoint, life might not have a predetermined purpose. Instead, it can be seen as a result of natural processes like evolution. However, this doesn't mean life is meaningless. Many scientists and thinkers argue that we can create our own meaning through our actions, relationships, and contributions to society. Humanistic approach. This approach suggests that the meaning of life is what we make of it. It emphasizes personal growth, fulfillment, and the pursuit of goals that bring happiness and a sense of accomplishment. Ultimately, the meaning of life can be deeply personal and subjective. What matters most is what gives your life meaning and purpose. What are your thoughts on this?
That was Copilot's answer, which was an excellent summary of centuries of human thinking. Not much detail, but it gives an overview. Let's hear what Google's Gemini has to say about whether life has a meaning or not.
The question of whether life has an inherent meaning is a profound one that has been pondered by philosophers and theologians for centuries. There's no definitive answer that can be universally agreed upon. Here are a few common perspectives. Religious or spiritual beliefs. Many religions and spiritual traditions propose that life has a predetermined purpose or meaning, often tied to a higher power or divine plan. Existentialism. This philosophical school of thought suggests that individuals create their own meaning through their choices and actions. Life has no inherent purpose, but we can give it significance. Hedonism. This philosophy focuses on pleasure as the ultimate good. The meaning of life can be found in seeking and experiencing happiness. Nihilism. This perspective asserts that life is ultimately meaningless and absurd. There is no inherent purpose or value to existence. Ultimately, the meaning of life is a personal and subjective question. It's something that each individual must discover for themselves. What gives your life meaning might be different from what gives someone else's life meaning. Would you like to discuss any of these perspectives further, or perhaps explore other philosophical or religious viewpoints on the meaning of life?
As expected, AI summarizes what human thinkers have been stating throughout the history. It is good, but I think the computers would come to other conclusions if the algorithms were thinking independently and not just summarizing human ideas. AI is not there yet, and maybe that would be a worrisome situation. For the time being, it is more like an advanced search engine which combines and summarizes information that humans have provided. In other words, the dog is still in a leash. If the computers would be truly creative and mimic emotion, we may be in trouble. AI will have gathered all the information about us, and it will never forget anything. That was a sidetrack. This was a good starting point. Let's move on to the next question. If life has a meaning, what is the meaning of life?
The question of the meaning of life has intrigued humans for centuries, and there are many perspectives on it. Here are a few. Philosophical and religious views. Different cultures and philosophies offer various answers. For example, some religious perspectives suggest that life's meaning is to fulfill a divine purpose or to achieve spiritual enlightenment. Philosophers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre have explored existentialist views, suggesting that life has no inherent meaning and that individuals must create their own purpose. Scientific perspective. From a scientific standpoint, life can be seen as a series of biological processes. The purpose of life, in this view, might be to survive, reproduce, and evolve. Psychological insights. Psychologists often break down the concept of a meaningful life into three components: coherence, life making sense; purpose, having goals; and mattering, feeling that one's life has value and makes a difference. Personal meaning. Many people find meaning through personal experiences, relationships, and achievements. This can vary greatly from person to person, as what gives one individual a sense of purpose might be different for another. Ultimately, the meaning of life is a deeply personal question, and the answer can be different for everyone. What do you think gives life meaning?
Okay, that was very interesting. After hearing what Google's Gemini has to say about the meaning of life, I will give my take on the topic. Finally, I will give my advice about seeking the meaning of life.
The question of, what is the meaning of life, is a profound one that has been pondered by philosophers and theologians for centuries. There isn't a single, universally agreed upon answer. Here are a few common perspectives. Religious or spiritual beliefs. Many religions and spiritual traditions propose that life has a predetermined purpose or meaning, often tied to a higher power or divine plan. Existentialism. This philosophical school of thought suggests that individuals create their own meaning through their choices and actions. Life has no inherent purpose, but we can give it significance. Hedonism. This philosophy focuses on pleasure as the ultimate good. The meaning of life can be found in seeking and experiencing happiness. Nihilism. This perspective asserts that life is ultimately meaningless and absurd. There is no inherent purpose or value to existence. Ultimately, the meaning of life is a personal and subjective question. It's something that each individual must discover for themselves. What gives your life meaning might be different from what gives someone else's life meaning. Is there anything specific you'd like to discuss about the meaning of life, or perhaps explore a particular perspective in more detail?
Before I give my take on this topic about the meaning of life, I think I want to structure the subject into some key concepts, which I think the AI answers a bit is mixing different kinds of meanings of the wording. So, first of all, I would like to talk about predictability in life, and then the relation to the truth. And then I would like to split the meaning of life into two kinds of meaning: the external meaning and the internal meaning. So first, let's talk about predictability. The human brain has evolved in an environment where we have been in a constant struggle for survival in an hostile environment in competition with wild animals. We've been running away from wild animals and aggressive humans, or chasing other animals to get food, and we have been feeling very good and happy when finding predictability, knowing where to find food, which neighborhood to avoid because of danger, and knowing who to trust and who we can rely on. In the olden days, in the Stone Age, we would find out where to find fish in the lake, where to find berries and fruits, and which places to avoid. The hill with the poisonous snakes is not a good place to be, or run into the forest where we know there are lots of grizzly bears. Everything that promotes survival gives us a feeling of comfort. It is carved in our DNA to have brains rewarding us when making discoveries that is predictable. Knowing that you can create fire using flintstones, you know it before you actually do it because you have experience. If you contrast the situation of predictability with the total chaos and continuous unpredictability, then we would be in a continuous stress, doing a trial and error without any pattern, just random outcomes all the time. And we would never know when to, and where to find food or shelter, This leads to two dangerous psychological states. The first is stress, because you get very stressed when nothing works and you don't really know what to do. And after you've been doing trial and error repeatedly and just get random outcomes, you will eventually be just give up and become depressed. So depression and stress are two monsters that human beings want to really run away from. This really makes you feel bad, and it's an extreme threat to health and well-being, and eventually it's even a threat to your life. So people want to have predictability because that makes them avoid these situations that can lead to either stress and in the long term depression. So when someone flashes the prospect of predictability, we are all ears. That makes us susceptible to believe in almost anything that can make the world predictable, because it makes us feel good, whether it's true or not. That leads us to the next important point, which is the relation between the truth and the facts and the way we view the world as well. But say you understand the world, you know what it is and what's the meaning with the whole thing. That makes you think that you know what's going on. And that kind of artificially creates the illusion of predictability, which really isn't there. There isn't any predictability about the world we live in. So the relation between predictability and the meaning of life is that predictability is what we're looking for, and the meaning of life is sort of providing that illusion of predictability. That leads us on to the next issue, which is the truth. We can conclude that human meaning or purpose in life doesn't necessarily have to be based on any form of truth or facts. It can be pure assumptions of anything. For instance, if I can convince someone that there is an invisible unicorn ruling the world, and he will protect you from harm and help you in life if you live according to the unicorn's rules. Most people will not believe in that story, but assume for a moment that someone has an open mind about the unicorn. If that person believes it, without seeing any indications supporting that in real life from facts or observations, he or she will still feel a sense of relief and happiness that the world is finally understandable and that survival is secured since the unicorn will protect that person. Then one can claim or conclude that this person has a meaning and purpose in life, even if it has no connection to reality. Thus, there is a fictional meaning in that person's life, created as a byproduct to our instinctive attraction to predictability, which has helped us throughout human history or evolution. Now let's move on to have a look at my division of the meaning of the word meaning or purpose in life into two separate parts, which is first of all the external meaning or purpose in life. It is a structure, the external world, how it is created and why it is the way it is and what it appears to be. And this structure can be either based on facts and observation or just assumption, as long as there is a person willing to believe that assumption is true, then it is a meaning for that person's life. Then we have the other concept of internal meaning in life or purpose in life, which is a structure that tells us how we should live our lives to align ourselves to this bigger outer structure, which is the external meaning or purpose of everything. So that structure creates a sort of predictability in one's own behavior. That driving force is dangerous since the quest for predictability requires everyone else to adhere to this structure of beliefs. Some people are obsessed with the idea to make the world predictable by creating this structure of rules that makes them dogmatic, and they may try to force their view on everyone else. There is also another layer to this, which I will not discuss in this video, but it is the human hierarchical Machiavellian behavior at the top of the pyramid, where the human basic behaviors are used to compete for power. For people at the top, they want to conquer the minds of the people who are susceptible to these ideas. And it's sort of a battlefield in the minds of people rather than battlefields in real life. So now we have worked our way through the key concepts. So now I want to talk about the AI's answers to the question about the meaning of life. And I would say that AI has presented it in a fashion that it can be categorized in three main categories, which is the scientific explanation of the world and how we should live it. Then it's the philosophical way of viewing the world. And then we have religion. And then Copilot was mentioning some about existentialism and hedonism and nihilism, which I would put in the basket of philosophy. And then we have ideology was not mentioned, but I would say that ideology is close to religion, but without a god. So it's sort of dogmatic opinions, assumptions, that sort of thing. And let's start with science. What science is. It is a structure that's based on the truth, which is observations of the world and gathering of facts, which according to the scientific method is evaluated by corroboration and predictions. Theories are tested and they should be falsifiable. So people can test them and falsify them. And they do so by finding observations that contradict their theories. So based on facts, each theory in science can be replaced or questioned. So the theory is falsified, and then it can either be modified or replaced with a new theory that is better aligned with the observations that has created a conflict with the previous theory. And science never claimed to be the truth. It is a continuous movement closer and closer to the truth. And each new theory is slightly closer to the truth than the previous theory. And when it comes to some areas like physics and mathematics is exact, but physics is very, very close to the truth in many, many areas. So that falsification and questioning and continuous testing of theories is a sort of self-correcting mechanism. So science is not something exact. It is the best guess. and it's continuously being improved. So it's kind of evolving all the time. But some areas are so close to the truth that it's more or less very difficult to find areas where it differs from observation. Then we have philosophy. It's a logical structure, a way of structuring thoughts about the world and making sense of the world. So it is based on observations and perceptions of the world. So it's in a sense based on the truth, but it gives lots of angles, points of view. It's not like in science where you have one theory which is dominating one area, like Newton's physics was dominating the mechanics for a long time before Einstein. And the view of the world in philosophy is like you have so many parallel tracks of theories and ways of thinking. It's more like points of view on the facts. So it's just structuring a structured way of thinking about the world as we see it and perceive it. And then finally we have religion, which is a structure which is not based on observation and perception. It's more emotional, a feeling and a conviction or a belief. Since it's not based on observation and facts, it cannot be falsified. So it's a very pointless to have a discussion about religion, like trying to convince someone for or against religion, because it's not based on facts from the beginning. It's based on belief. So it cannot be falsified. And any interpretation is therefore possible. In many religions, you can see that there are two or more interpretations which leads to a split up in different churches or schools of thought. A believer in religion can feel the feeling of happiness that the world is finally understandable and happiness is a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, the world isn't very predictable unless everyone behaves according to the religious rules. And sometimes that can lead to the dogmatism, which is a problem, and it has the same ingredients as in some ideologies as well. So in summary, religion can be very good as a personal, internal meaning of life, and it can also be a good external meaning of life, as long as the religion is seen as a way to describe the world rather than try to force the world to be what is written. So now we can move on to my advice when it comes to the meaning of life. My number one advice is not to think too much about the meaning of life. Just find joy in doing the things you appreciate doing. Everything that keeps your mind busy with a task will distract from the unavoidable unpredictability of the world. I'm a bit thinking along the lines of thoughts like in Stoicism or Taoism said that you should not think too much about things you cannot control. You should focus on the things you can control. So if the world is in a certain way but you have no impact on it, you shouldn't even think about it. And Taoism is thinking more in terms that you should go with the flow. You cannot control the world, but you see how the world is moving in various directions and you align yourself. Like on a sailing boat, you try to put the sail so you get wind in the sail and you can move in a certain direction. So it's more like aligning yourself to the world as it is. When it comes to philosophy, it's always good to think in a structured way If not for any other reason, it is a distraction from the unpredictability of the world, as well as the thought about our inevitable death. So, structured way of thinking and thinking from various angles, viewing the same topic, is a good thing. And but I don't think that hedonism is a good thing, not because it's morally bad or anything, but I don't think our minds are good at handling. You should just live for finding maximum pleasure is not a really good life, because you find yourself eating cakes every day. And I mean, our DNA has programmed us to, like, if we have a chance, we rest. If we have a chance, we will eat as much sweet food as possible. We will not exercise. We will not. We have so many instincts that are not adapted to today's society. So hedonism, I would just say, recommend not to follow those rules. And when it comes to nihilism, I think it's really bad for our psychology to think that, to think about that there's no meaning in life. Even although I believe that to be true. So you shouldn't think about it, because it's kind of, we are not made for that kind of thoughts. We cannot handle it well. It leads to bad thoughts about everything. And so hedonism and nihilism is not a good thing. But as co-pilot mentioned there, the humanistic approach is a very good one, I think, that you should do good things for society and things like that, and that those actions give you meaning in life. And that's a bit close to the existentialism as well. So existentialism, yes, I can see that as a way, but I don't think it's a practical, good solution. Just to, I'm going to do lots of actions, and that's going to give me a meaning in life. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it works. But in general, never be dogmatic. If you follow a worldview based on assumptions and feelings, emotions, or belief, uh, it's never good to be dogmatic. I would prefer to follow facts and try to stick to own observations and perceptions. I am a strong proponent of science, and I know many people are not interested in science, but if you're interested in science, remember that science is not the truth. It is our best guess. So keep an open mind. That concludes this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will be back in another video about another topic.